Hello and welcome to Novruz special on A News. Novruz, a festival deeply embedded in Turkic heritage, is a grand celebration of spring, renewal and unity, observed across Central Asia, Azerbaijan, Iran, Afghanistan, Turkey and beyond. Although its origins trace back to Zoroastrianism, Turkic and Iranian peoples embraced and enriched it, weaving in their nomadic customs, warrior traditions and deep reverence for nature. Perhaps it is in the latter element that is contained its truly universal meaning, its ontological quintessence, transcending ethno-linguistic, religious and cultural divides, implying a far more profound meaning, one that is both impervious to the passage of time and that is also constantly reinvented and refined. Amidst the constant reinvention, there are some fundamentals that remain intact. Essentially, for all of those who celebrate, Novruz marks the arrival of spring, the vernal equinox, the inception of the astronomical new year. For instance, in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan, the arrival of Novruz is a spectacle of epic horse games like Kokba, a ferocious Polish-style competition, traditional wrestling and storytelling by folk poets who recite heroic sagas by the fire. The rituals and specifics may differ, but essentially the essence is one and the same. More than just a holiday, Novruz is a cultural bridge, a testament to resilience and joyous tribute to the eternal cycle of nature, where the spirit of the steppes and mountains lives on in fire, feast and festivity. Rather interestingly, Novruz is not just celebrated in those countries that one would normally associate with the tradition itself, but in those countries who are very much far away from this region. Now I'm delighted to have Anne Thompson, scholar, linguist and writer with us today, who's joining from the UK. And it's great to see you, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, Orhan. Yes, thank you for inviting me.
And you know a great deal about Novruz by virtue of your research and also by virtue of your association with the country. What does Novruz mean to you?
Well, I think it means to me probably what it means to most people, which is indeed, as you were saying, the arrival of spring. And I think with Novruz, the fact that in the 4 weeks running up to the equinox, every Tuesday is a separate holiday that can be marked as a holiday, a day closely linked with nature, and each Tuesday follows one of the elements that we know in English as earth, wind, fire and water, but in a different order. And so I think the holiday does have this universal appeal because it is something so closely linked to nature. And it's a time of year when we start to feel spring in the air, when we start to feel that bit more optimistic, although winter hasn't gone away yet, but spring is slowly coming. And now that we've finally got the equinox, we know we'll have more light than dark and that the sun will get warmer.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And we understand that Novruz is celebrated in many European countries, including the UK, in particular those countries where we have sizable communities representing people originally from Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iran and Central Asian countries, and naturally UK is one of those countries. Now let us hear the report prepared by my colleague Aytana Basli.
It is time of the year when Azerbaijanis around the world come together to celebrate one of their most cherished traditions, Novruz. And here in the UK, the celebrations are already in full swing. This year, Novruz has been marked by a series of vibrant events across London and beyond. The City of London and GovPay hosted a grand celebration, bringing together diplomats, business leaders and members of the Azerbaijani community. Held at Mansion House, the event was attended by Lord Mayor Alistair King, who highlighted the importance of cultural diversity and Azerbaijan-UK relations. The evening featured traditional Azerbaijani music, performances and of course Novruz delicacies. Beyond the Azerbaijani community, Novruz is widely celebrated in the UK by Iranians, Turkmens, Uzbeks, Tajiks and Afghans, all of whom share this ancient tradition. At the University of Cambridge, the Central Asia Forum organized a special event exploring the deep cultural significance of Novruz, while at City University of London, students will be gathering to celebrate with traditional songs, dances and festive treats. And the celebrations are far from over. As Novruz approaches, more events are planned, bringing communities together to share the warmth and joy of this special occasion across the UK.
For Azerbaijanis, of course, Novruz Bayramı is an elaborate affair marked by the 4 sacred Tuesdays, each dedicated to one of the 4 elements of nature: water, fire, earth, and wind, to which you made reference earlier. So the bonfires blaze and young men leap through the flames, symbolizing some form of purification and courage, an echo of ancient Turkic fire-worshipping rituals. And despite Soviet-era bans, Novruz survived as a very powerful symbol of national identity and perhaps to a certain extent cultural defiance. And you lived in Azerbaijan for many years, and you know this country very well indeed. Not just by virtue of the fact that you lived there, for some other reasons as well. What role do you think did Novruz play in Azerbaijan during the Soviet era, and how was it revived later during the post-independence era?
Well, I think people certainly remembered Novruz as a holiday that was always very close to their hearts. And at different times during the Soviet era, it was possible earlier in the 1920s to celebrate Novruz. And then later, under the Soviet Union, when Stalin was clamping down very much on national traditions, Novruz was no longer celebrated as a holiday. But people remembered it, and as part of the celebrations are very much within the family. It could be celebrated at home. And then later, in 1969, I think it was, famously, Novruz became celebrations were officially held in Azerbaijan again, briefly. And then with the kind of celebrations that we have today of people gathering in the streets, watching entertainments, and celebrating with their neighbours and with the rest of their communities. And then these celebrations, while again in the 80s, they were sort of 70s and 80s, they were officially frowned upon, they came back much stronger towards the end of the 1980s, and obviously in the independence period have become a staple, and I would say one of the most popular holidays on the Azerbaijani calendar, certainly.
Yes, indeed. And as I mentioned earlier, those countries where we have sizable Azerbaijani community, Novruz is celebrated, and Georgia is one of them. Neighboring Georgia is naturally one of them. And now let's listen to the report prepared by our Tbilisi correspondent Nini Nikolashvili about the festivities in the Georgian capital.
Azerbaijanis in Georgia are celebrating Novruz, an ancient festival of renewal, in a way that highlights country's multicultural spirit. In Pamukkale and beyond, Georgian neighbors are joining the festivities, enjoying Azerbaijanis traditional sweets such as shekerbura and pakhlava, alongside with the symbolic bonfire that marks the holiday. More than 230,000 Azerbaijanis living in Georgia, they form the biggest minority, ethnic minority in country. However, Novruz is also celebrated by other communities, including Uzbekistan's, Turkmenistan's, Iranians, and other North Caucasus groups such as Kamuks and Lezgins. The Novruz is not only a way for them to mark the arrival of spring, but also an opportunity to strengthen cultural bonds. In public events in Tbilisi are bringing cultures together through folk music, dance, and shared traditions. Novruz serves as a reminder of Georgia's diverse heritage, where different communities respect and embrace each other's customs, strengthening the social bonds. This year, the International Day of Novruz will be celebrated on March 22 in Tbilisi's historic Abanatubani district. Supported by Tbilisi City Hall, the event is organized by the Embassy of Turkmenistan in Georgia and will feature traditional performances, dance, music, and culinary delights. Happy Novruz! It's Nina Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
And what is quite fascinating and unique, I suppose, about Novruz celebrations in Georgia is that quite often you see Georgians, some other ethnicities, sometimes Armenians, celebrating Novruz together with Azerbaijanis. Have you ever celebrated Novruz in Tbilisi yourself? And what do you think about the power of culture uniting people of different backgrounds and also transcending ethno-linguistic and cultural divides?
Well, to look at Georgia first, I remember travelling through Marneuli 1 year at Novruz and saw the celebrations in the mainly Azerbaijani villages that I travelled through. But of course, also in that area are Georgians living and Armenians as well. I know a photographer living, a British Armenian photographer living in Georgia who's documented a lot of the celebrations involving both Armenians and Azerbaijanis living in Georgia. And I think culture is one of those things, and especially Novruz, that is an excellent way of bringing communities together. Since the celebrations are so closely linked to nature and at a time of year when people are feeling hopeful. And there are many things that the cultures, that the different ethnic groups can share together and enjoy the music and enjoy the traditional sweets and other food made to mark the holiday. So I think Novruz is one of those celebrations where, and also probably because it doesn't have now a strong religious element, it's a celebration that people of different backgrounds feel able to take part in fully without compromising whatever their religious faith might be.
Indeed, and Novruz itself is not a religious holiday, of course, and I think that those celebrations that you referred to, and you referred to the work by, I think, Oni Krikorian, in many ways, I suppose, testify to the coexistence between different ethnicities, and the fact that there are certain universal things which are beyond religious divides, and they could actually unite people in a very powerful and enduring way. And of course, since you mentioned about religion, Iran is one of those principal countries where Novruz is considered to be somewhat inculcated into the national identity. And interestingly enough, although due to its origins, quite often Novruz is perceived to be somewhat militating against Islam. This is not the case in Iran, which is a very unique case. Turaj Shiraluli, an analyst from Tehran, expands very briefly on this very interesting perceived paradox.
Happy Novruz. Iranians mark 20th of March as advent of season of spring as well as the New Year. The festivities start before New Year by special shoppings or preparations of Hafsin or 7 S's as a special table, and then continue with visiting the relatives. And of course, these festivities, which date back to the pre-Islamic period, is now so woven into the fabric, society's fabric, as well as building Iranian's national identity, that it is a pre-Islamic festivity, but in an Islamic country, mostly dominant Islamic country, it is widely and nationally observed. And ironically, this year, United States President Donald Trump has joined other world leaders to congratulate and felicitate Iranians on this auspicious occasion. So happy Novruz to everybody and this New Year.
In Afghanistan, Novruz is deeply rooted in Turkic and Iranian traditions. There is, of course, history to explore here. It was celebrated with Red Flower Festival in Mazar Sharif, where thousands used to gather at the Blue Mosque to mark the arrival of spring. Buzkashi, Afghanistan's national sport, a rugged horseback game, used to fill stadiums back in those days. And let's cross over to Tamim Bahis in Afghanistan, who will tell us more about the Novruz tradition of this country.
Many Afghans are celebrating Novruz, the festival that marks the arrival of spring and the start of the new year, with family gatherings, special meals, and traditional customs. The holiday has long been an important part of Afghan culture, particularly in cities like Kabul, Mazar Sharif, and Herat. Novruz is observed across Afghanistan not only by Pashtuns but also by Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, Turkmens, Baloch, and some Nuristani communities. In the north, Uzbek and Turkmen mark the occasion with traditional feasts and dances, while in Bamiyan, many Hazaras celebrate with public gatherings. For Tajiks, particularly in Herat and Badakhshan, Novruz remains a key cultural event despite growing restrictions. The Taliban do not recognize Novruz and have previously called it un-Islamic. However, officials have stated that they will not prevent people from marking the occasion privately. In previous years, large public events such as the famous flag-raising ceremony at Mazar-e Sharif's Blue Mosque drew thousands of attendees. This year, celebrations are more subdued, with most people observing the day at home. Happy Novruz to everyone. This is the Meme Bahis in Kabul reporting for A News.
Yasan, I would like to put to you a question about the relationship between Islam and Novruz. In Iran, it's part of the culture, despite the fact that the Islamic Republic of Iran is going to its own unique system of governance with unique ideology. In Afghanistan, after Taliban take over, despite the fact that Taliban does not recognize Novruz as a holiday, believes that it is sort of not an Islamic holiday, but still, privately, it is celebrated even in Afghanistan. What do you make of this intricate relationship between Islam and Novruz?
Well, I think it's interesting, and also interesting to look maybe at parallels in other religions. For example, if you look at celebrations of Christmas linked with Christianity, the birth of Jesus Christ, many of the traditions in different countries, say in Europe, that celebration is intertwined with celebrations that preceded the advent of Christianity in those regions, that were the celebrations of the middle of winter in December. When it's the shortest day of the year. So I think there is a tradition in which different religions adapt to the existing holidays and celebrations of the communities in which they find themselves, as it were. And this has happened, I think, in Iran, particularly with Islam and Novruz, because and Novruz was such a strong celebration that it's retained its distinct identity. While it's not strictly Islamic, it's equally. I feel that the authorities in Iran don't feel they need to object to it because it's not a specifically un-Islamic celebration either. Although the Taliban would beg to differ, but they have very differing views on many of the traditions of people that are marked in the different countries at Novruz, such as the music and dancing and the like. So, but I think in Iran, it seems that both Islam and Novruz sit side by side without too much trouble, I would say.
Yeah, without too much trouble. It looks like Novruz precedes Islam as a tradition, then somewhat becomes part of the wider Islamic culture, retaining its un-Islamic propensity, still becomes part and parcel of the Islamic culture pervading within that country, which is a fascinating, of course, relationship.
Yes, yeah.
Indeed. And let's now cross over to Fariza Kalumirzina, reporting from Almaty, Kazakhstan, who will tell us more about the festivities there in that country and in general in Central Asia.
Novruz, 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 Novruz. These are the names of Central Asia's most significant spring holiday. Regardless of the spelling, the meaning remains the same. It marks the revival of nature and the start of a new year. Celebrated on the spring equinox, Novruz is filled with joy, traditional games, and a rich feast that must include regional delicacies. Here in Kazakhstan, festivities begin as early as 14th of March, a week before the equinox. People welcome spring by bidding a joyful farewell to winter, and the celebrations continue for at least 8 days. Today, Novruz in Kazakhstan is a grand festival featuring concerts, exhibitions, and sporting events. This year, nearly 200 public celebrations are expected, and since 1991, Novruz has been an official state holiday. In Kyrgyzstan, the holiday known as Novruz is marked with similar traditions. A highlight is the traditional horse game Kokboru, alongside Atchabasu, or long-distance horse races. Women wear national costumes, and as night falls, they prepare well-known festive dishes such as sumalak and kenje, both made from millet and requiring up to 12 hours to cook. In Uzbekistan, Novruz is welcomed with a rich spread of dishes, including pilaf and samsa. The lead up to the holiday is filled with fairs celebrating folk crafts and traditions, while on the day itself, the streets come alive with music, dancing, and lively competitions, bringing communities together. Meanwhile, in Tajikistan, it is customary to clean and decorate homes with fresh spring flowers. A cherished tradition, Gulgardoni, sees children venture into the mountains to pick snowdrops, which they later distribute to homes while singing, symbolizing gratitude and the arrival of spring. Well, in Turkmenistan, family visits take center stage. People pay respect to relatives, especially the elderly, gathering around tables filled with semeni, a dish made from sprouted wheat, representing growth and renewal. Novruz is more than just an ancient holiday. It remains a living tradition, uniting the people of Central Asia and beyond. Regardless of ethnic or religious background, people from all walks of the life take part in the festivities. With a week of celebration ahead, the festive atmosphere is set to continue across the region for days to come. Fariza Kalimurzana, A News in Kazakhstan.
And we see that, although, of course, Novruz is universal, it transcends cultural religious divides, but there is a cultural background, of course. Countries involved are Central Asian ones, Iran, Azerbaijan. So we see some kind of Turkic Iranian tradition. It revolves around that tradition, but also it's quite universal. What is your feeling about it? Both its cultural sort of scope, which is obvious, which is very clearly entrenched, but also it goes beyond that, what seems to be entrenched cultural scope.
Well, I think it's because it does have that deeper meaning in welcoming spring, in looking at renewal. So it's the renewal of nature around us. But people can also see it as renewal for themselves in their own lives. And it also marks, I would say, and some of the traditions are often linked with other religions have picked up in different ways, such as traditions of being cleansed of troubles, being cleansed of problems, being reconciled with neighbours and relatives and family, to start off the new year sort of refreshed and renewed. And I think these they touch on what I think are basic human needs and sentiments that people have as the year goes by, if a need to mark the seasons, the passing of time, and that need for both reconciliation and renewal, which is part of the history of Novruz, and part of, deeply rooted in its traditions.
And the basic human needs are deeply, deeply universal and humane, of course. And my last question to you, Anne, what is your most memorable Novruz memory, story that you...
Oh, gosh. A friend and I used to have a tradition when we lived in Baku. We liked to walk around the old city on either the last Tuesday before Novruz or Novruz itself, to look at all the bonfires, to jump or maybe to step sedately over one when it wasn't too big. And I do remember those times very fondly because local people were always very welcoming, sharing food with us. And I would say that that's one of my favourite Novruz memories, I would say.
Thank you very much, and so grateful to you for your time. And happy Novruz to you and to all our friends in the UK.
Happy Novruz to you and to all viewers everywhere.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne.
You're welcome.
Well, against the backdrop of the ontological semantics of Novruz, into the depths of which we have tried to dive today, there are certain basics that remain entrenched, and it's so entrenched that they testify to our common shared humanity. As the flames of Novruz fires flicker across Azerbaijan, Central Asia, Afghanistan, and beyond, they remind us that no matter the era, no matter the borders, renewal, unity and tradition endure. From egg battles to leaping over bonfires, this festival isn't just history, it's a living, breathing celebration of resilience and joy. So, as the new year begins, may the spirit of Novruz bring light, laughter and prosperity to all. Happy Novruz.
In Baku, a unique children's art exhibition was held to mark the occasion of Novruz, a celebration of the first day of spring and the renewal of nature. Novruz, meaning new day, is a festivity celebrated for over 3,000 years across various regions, including the Balkans, Central Asia and the Caucasus. It promotes peace, solidarity and reconciliation among families and communities. The exhibition featured a variety of artworks from children of different age groups, offering a glimpse into their views on ecology and the importance of protecting the environment.
The exhibition is particularly valuable because it features works from various children's and youth age groups. Most importantly, the theme is also very interesting. It presents an alternative view of the world through the eyes of children. At the heart of this alternative perspective is the topic of ecology, ecological thinking, and an environmentally conscious attitude toward the world, space, and the surrounding environment. Looking at the works, I saw how deeply the young artists understand this topic. In their minds, their worldview clearly acknowledges and understands the importance of protecting the environment and nature.
Through vibrant, colourful paintings, the young artists express their hope for a sustainable future, highlighting the beauty of nature and the need to use its resources responsibly, such as through alternative energy.